Welcome to the UPMC Steelers Draft Wrap-Up Show.
Derrick, how you doing? Hey, congratulations to you, man. We're excited to have you. You're in Detroit with your family? Man, congratulations, man. We're excited about getting started. We want you to bring that big boy presence that's been on display on all that tape we looked at.
And with that, the Steelers made their first pick. Turned out to be 7 as we welcome you in to the UPMC Steelers wrap-up show as you look live at the Steeler headquarters, which was a very busy place this weekend. Welcome inside our KDKA studios. Bob Pompeani, flanked by the quarterback of the program, Mr. Charlie Batch. Rich Walsh is here. He's been busy over there at the weekend. We have a lot to get into today. Let's talk first about what the Steelers did overall. Charlie, they were busy. They pretty much stuck to the script they like. Physical, guys who have productive college careers, and that's what they did.
They did, and you can see Omar Khan, he stuck to his guns, and he literally let the draft play out in the manner that it did, and you didn't see too many moves made. Kudos to Omar Khan on this draft.
All right, so if you were busy this weekend and missed all the picks, we're going to run them down for you right now. The Steelers took care of some business at their defensive line by selecting Derrick Harmon, 31st overall out of Oregon. This guy is a worker, a guy who should really solidify and help Cam Hayward on that defensive line. Kaleb Johnson was a 3rd-round pick. Remember, they didn't have a number 2. They ended up turning that into DK Metcalf, and that's a pretty good trade-off. Then today, Jack Sawyer, the edge rusher out of Ohio State, followed by Y.A. Black out of Iowa. And you can see a Big Ten theme here to these picks. Will Howard at 185, a quarterback who won a national championship with the Buckeyes. And then Carson Bruner. You remember Mark Bruner? Here we are so many years later, and his son was taken out of Washington. Dante Kett was the last player to be picked. So let's talk about Derrick Harmon for a second, because this is a guy who had a big productive career at Oregon. Started at Michigan State, man. He was quick off the ball. When you talk about interior defensive linemen, he got 55 quarterback pressures. That's not easy to do from where he played. Quick off the ball, very secure in what he did. He had an injury that was of some concern and maybe explains why he went down to the Steelers, but they'll say thank you very much that he was available to them. Charlie, let's talk about what he brings to this team and how important he is to the defensive line, which had its problems stopping the run last year.
Yeah, when you hear Mike Tomlin on the telephone talking to him, he says, listen, I need you to bring that big boy presence. Why? Because the Steelers finish in the bottom of the league in run defense, so you have to get better. You lose Larry Ogunjobi in free agency. Now, how do you get younger? This is how you do it. Harmon is that big body presence. He's going to now solidify that defensive line, and what better way to learn alongside of Cam Hayward. This is a win for him.
No question about that. He should help out quite a bit. And that defensive line, and they had about 3 or 4 choices, but they ended up with him, and that's a big win for the Steelers. With more on Derrick Harmon, let's go over to Rich Walsh, who was over there when this whole thing went down. Rich?
Guys, Derrick Harmon was one of a handful of guys they did extensive homework on for their first pick, and a guy they were not moving on from. It worked out perfect for the Steelers, especially because it was a position of need for this team.
Just a guy that stood out. We had done a lot of homework on him. You know, we had a lot of contacts in Michigan State, and obviously Oregon, we know some people, and it was just, you know, he checked a lot of boxes for us. I think the ceiling's really high for him, and, you know, we'll see where it goes. I mean, you know, I think we could all improve at everything we do in life, but he's got a good opportunity.
He has Steeler DNA. For us, man, it starts inside and up front, and this is a guy that's capable of dominating that space versus the run and the pass. His intangible qualities are very attractive. He's a smart guy. He's a football guy. He's got natural leadership skills. The people at Oregon were really blown away by his ability to fit in, and not only fit in, but lead in a short period of time. He had a similar reputation at Michigan State.
Steelers DNA, that's what you like to hear. All right, let's get to know the big guy from Detroit. Went to Loyola High School, 6'4", 313, with an 83-inch wingspan. He played 3 seasons at Michigan State before transferring to Oregon. A run stuffer, 45 tackles, 5 sacks, 10.5 tackles for losses. Harmon was the first defensive lineman drafted in the first round since 2011 when they took Cam Hayward. And this guy reminds us a lot of Hayward. Hopefully he can have a similar career. Omar Khan did tell us that he fielded a bunch of phone calls to move back and potentially acquire a day 2 pick. But Khan said there was no way he was moving off of Harmon.
An exciting day for us. I think the other day when we met, you know, we talked about certain guys that we would not trade away from, and this is one of those players for us. You know, the phone was ringing, and we had some serious conversations. But at the end of the day, you know, once Derrick was still there, we were excited, and you know, it was an easy choice for us. We were working the phones, several picks before ours, and you listen, you have to. We owe it to ourselves to listen, and you don't know how it's going to shake out, when you're 5 or 6 picks ahead. And, you obviously listen and, you weigh things, but at the end of the day, he was just one of those players we were not going to trade away from.
Well, it was a bittersweet weekend for Harmon. Getting drafted is supposed to be one of the best days of your life, but his mom was fighting for her life on life support during the draft and unfortunately passed away shortly after Harmon's name was called. The Steelers offered their condolences. Art Rooney II said in a statement, quote, "Though we are excited to select Derrick in the first round of the NFL draft, our hearts are heavy as we mourn the death of his mother, Tiffany Sane. We will support Derrick and his family however we can as he navigates this period of grief. In times like this, we hope Derrick finds comfort in the love and support from the organization and Steelers fans around the world." So sad, guys. And despite the passing of his mom, Harmon did travel to Pittsburgh yesterday to meet with Tomlin and Khan and his new coaches. Guys?
Yeah, such a bittersweet, as you said, Rich. And thoughts and prayers to the Harmon family, no doubt about that. All right, Charlie, let's get back to Derrick Harmon, what he brings here. And the fact that the Steelers did not move off of this, they were talking about trades. People had asked about things, but they had a mission to do this, and they stuck to it.
They did. And then when you look at just their draft order, they were very high on him. And when we turn around and say, okay, what do we need to do up front? Stopping the run, you do that, and it's just really a great addition that they're looking to do, because you always talk about stopping the run, but when you don't do it and the season ends in the manner that it did, knowing that you were run upon, you have to fix the problem, and they addressed it here today.
It's all about the trenches, and we've seen that, and Andy Weidl's effect on this as well last couple of years. When you take a look at what they've done, offensive line and defensive line, you have Derrick Harmon this year adding to that defensive line, and they picked another guy later in black, as we talked about, to even add another name there. But before that, Troy Fautanu was a #1 overall pick last year. Second round, they go to Zach Frazier, a center out of West Virginia, and he had a fantastic first season. And then before that, it was Broderick Jones and Keanu Benton. So they have really worked on their trenches, and that's where it all starts with the Pittsburgh Steelers in winning games. All right, let's talk about what's coming up next, because the Steelers added a running back and another Big Ten productive player. We'll talk about Kaleb Johnson being called by the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's next right here on our Draft Wrap-Up Show.
Welcome back to the UPMC Steelers Draft Wrap-Up Show.
Once again, taking a live look over at the Steeler complex. It's Ian Smith operating the drone tonight as you get a good look at where all the activity happened this weekend. We talked about #1 pick and Derrick Harmon, but even after they didn't have a #2 pick, but keep in mind, you can say the #2 pick this year was DK Metcalf. They had a #3 pick overall, and they took a guy that they really liked in the running game, and that would be Kaleb Johnson. 83rd overall, 3rd-round pick out of Iowa. And boy, he had a nice 2024 season with 1,537 yards, 21 touchdowns. He's powerful. He's a decisive guy. So, Charlie, they lost Najee Harris, who went to the Chargers in free agency. They needed someone. Does he fit the bill?
He definitely does. He's a 6-footer here. He's explosive, and he put that on film. And anytime that you're able to deliver a 75-yard run, that catches scout attention. And you can see right now it's going to be a really good compliment with Jaylen Warren to add him to the equation. It's up to him at this particular point to expedite that learning curve, understanding that offense, and then from there, once they hit the training camp, that will show how much he'll actually contribute to this offense.
And remember, they have Jaylen Warren, who signed his deal, so he's in the hopper, as well as Kenneth Gainwell, a guy who I think is a really good find for them from Philadelphia. He signed a $1.5 million deal, very productive on 3rd down. All right, with more on Kaleb Johnson and what he brings to the Steelers, Rich, you have more on him.
Yeah, I actually love this pick right here. Kaleb Johnson sounds like the perfect fit for the Steelers. Dominated the Big Ten. Other than drafting Najee Harris in that first round in 21, it's the highest they've selected a running back since taking Le'Veon Bell in the 2nd round in 2013. And ironically, Johnson is drawing a lot of comps to Bell, which would be good for the Steelers.
Excited about getting Kaleb Johnson in here. A really explosive running back that we spent some time with on a 30 visit here. One of the more instinctive backs I've watched in a couple of years coming out of the draft. Perfect fit, regardless of whatever run scheme you're running. He ran multiple at Iowa. Really impressive as a volume runner as the game went on. I think one of the more impressive stats you've seen as a 4th quarter. What he averaged in the 4th quarter, I believe it was over 5 yards per carry. It might have been closer to 6.
All right, let's get to know Johnson. He's from Cincinnati, went to Hamilton High School there, 6'1", 224, led the Big Ten in rush yards and TDs, was also a consensus first-team All-American. Johnson scored in every single game last season, and maybe the stat Mike Tomlin loves the most, 0 fumbles in 24. And some other interesting information about Johnson: he spent some time working out with Aaron Rodgers this offseason, and he's also used to wearing black and gold, guys.
Yeah, that's an interesting transition to make. Black and gold to more black and gold, and maybe that's why they like those guys, but they play Big Ten power football. When we come back, speaking of Big Ten, 2 more picks were taken from the Big Ten today. Steelers got an outside edge rusher and a guy who has a big career, as well as a quarterback. We'll get into all that and more as you look live at the Steelers UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, which was the site to be this weekend. A lot of activity there, and it's still going on after the draft. We will continue right after this on KDKA.
Welcome back to the UPMC Steelers Draft Wrap-Up Show.
We're back. You saw the first couple of rounds. They produced 2 players today, a very busy day. Rounds 3, 4, 5, all the way to 7, or 4 through 7, I should say. And this is what the Steelers did. Jack Sawyer, who had a really big postseason with Ohio State, including an 83-yard scoop and score that beat Texas. He was taken with the 123rd pick. Then it was Y.A. Black, as I said, at 164. Will Howard, the quarterback, also taken out of Ohio State, and boy, he was really good. Carson Bruner, that's Mark's son. He will be here out of Washington, and Dante Kent rounded it out. Let's talk about Will Howard. Kansas State for a couple of years, then to Ohio State. He was the MVP of the national championship game when they beat Notre Dame, so he has all those kinds of intangibles. Put it on the field as well. What do you like about him?
Yeah, I really love. He brings that championship pedigree right now. You know, leading that Ohio State team that was loaded, trying to keep everybody happy when you have that much talent around, but also showing the poise as games were unfolding, especially in that playoff game and the series, making sure that he was making the right reads and delivering and putting that football team in the end zone. So it's one thing to look at what he did at Ohio State, but the scouts did dive deeper and looking to see what he did at Kansas State. Let's look at that film. When you didn't have the talent around you, how were you able to deliver? Obviously he did, because that allowed him the opportunity at Ohio State, and here he is right now as a member of the Steelers, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and expectations were high at Ohio State. He delivered 14-2 record, 73% completion, a lot of touchdowns, Rich Walsh, and they like that. A guy who was anxious to become a Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, the Steelers were super high on Will Howard, one of the most accurate QBs in college football, and he's a winner, leading the Buckeyes to a national championship this past season. The Steelers needed to add someone to the quarterback room, and Howard was the guy they had their eyes on for a while now.
Really looking at Will, you know, his maturity level, what he accomplished this year, you know, going from Kansas State and then stepping into that role at Ohio State and winning the national championship. Those are things you see him do on the actual tape. You know, he takes some of the guesswork about his mental toughness. And then obviously the transition he's going to have in the NFL for any of these guys. And we got to make sure we have the right setup for him and give him every opportunity to succeed with all the quarterbacks in that room.
Obviously, there will be some that question what the Steelers did this year. Only time will tell how this 2025 draft turns out. For what it's worth, I liked it. They addressed needs and also drafted the best available when they were on the clock. And I could see 2 to 3 of these guys making an impact this year. Let's listen to how Tomlin sums up this year's draft.
We wanted to retool physicality in all areas, and included in that discussion is the use of the second-round pick to acquire DK Metcalf. Although he's a receiver, I think he fits the bill in terms of physicality and size. And so that definitely was an agenda of ours this weekend.
And we will get to see all of the newest Steelers up close on May 9th through the 12th for their rookie minicamp on the South Side, guys.
All right, Rich, thank you very much. And let's talk about last year's class, because they had some guys, as we indicated, who played and made a contribution, but they had a lot of guys who were injured, including Troy Fautanu. Charlie, he missed. They're anxious to get him back. Roman Wilson was another guy with high expectations out of Michigan. Also Peyton Wilson, he did play and did some really good things. Mason McCormick stepped right in, and that's another offensive guard who came in. Logan Lee missed time, so did Ryan Watts. So the bottom line is they're going to be getting some other guys back to add to this class in 2025 who were not available last year.
And this was adding your redshirt freshman, right? So when you add somebody like a Troy Fontana, yes, he didn't play a lot last year, but yeah, you add him to that, back to this particular draft class. So that's why they didn't address the offensive line in that particular manner. But also that 6th-round pick, Logan Lee, You add him to the equation on the defensive line for depth, so it's going to be competitive, and that's one thing that Mike Tomlin loves to do, add competition at each position so nothing's given, everything is earned.
One thing that did not happen this week is that George Pickens still here. A lot of people thought maybe there would be a trade. He's here to complement a guy they brought in and used that second-round pick on DK Metcalf. That should be a very interesting combination for the Steelers. That's next when we continue right here on our UPMC Steelers Draft Wrap-Up.
Welcome back to the UPMC Steelers Draft Wrap-Up Show.
All right, welcome back. We continue, and when you analyze this draft, it's important to take into account that even though they didn't have a second-round pick, they used that to get one of the best receivers in the game. DK Metcalf was acquired, and man, this guy can stretch the field. He's a physical guy. You heard Mike Tomlin talk about that. And he has earned his stripes to the point where the Steelers then immediately gave him a 5-year deal for $150 million at $30 million a year. So a big get by the Steelers to get number 14, and he should have an immediate impact on everyone, including helping George Pickens. Let's take a look at the wide receiver room because now it's Metcalf and Pickens. This would be the Steelers' answer to Chase and Higgins in Cincinnati, or Jefferson and Austin out there in Minnesota, or Calvin Austin here and Roman Wilson. Charlie, I want to get your take on this wide receiver room because last year they could not find a reliable number 2, and it took them all year to do it. Now they have 2 guys right at the top of the draft board or at wide receiver room.
This is one of the dangerous combinations in the league right now. When you look at George Pickens and DK Metcalf, now you know the attention is not going to be on just one. If it is, guess what? Somebody else is going to eat you up in that particular manner. Now, when you look at the slot, who is the third down receiver? Yes, Calvin Austin is in pole position, and they're going to give Roman Wilson every opportunity to now show what he's capable of doing because of the injury happening so fast last year. But again, he's in that red shirt freshman year that he's able to now rebound and hopefully contribute to the receiver room.
Let's talk about him specifically because he did miss the season, and that's a shame because he's somebody they wanted to get in here. He had a real good career at Michigan with J.J. McCarthy. He didn't really stand out numbers-wise, but every time he needed a big play, he was the guy who made it. So what will he bring, and what do you see his role as?
Right now he's just limited with the experience here at this particular level, but you know the value that he brings. He comes from a great program in Michigan, but wasn't able to deliver in that particular point. They were high on him early in camp before he got injured. Unfortunately, the injury took its toll, but he's eager to get back. He wants to contribute. You can see he's working hard each and every day to go out there and get better.
Yeah, this is a team that you would think did everything that it wanted to do. And again, the comment that kept coming up was physicality, because last year they did not live up to that at the end of the year, especially against a good team. So I think more than anything, that was their goal, and they seem to have achieved it.
They definitely did. And when you look at just the makeup of what they did and what the moves that they did not make, that means they feel comfortable with what they have on the roster.
Yeah, they were tempted, I'm sure, to make some moves, but they stuck to their game plan, and that normally works for them. When we come back, we're going to talk about some important dates coming up. And right now, as you look at a live shot of Acrisure Stadium and where they have Supercross going on, there's a lot of dirt on that field. They'll have to clean it up and get ready for some football soon. We'll talk about that when we come back, right here on KDKA.
Welcome back to the UPMC Steelers Draft Wrap-Up Show.
You know, there's never a dull moment when it comes to the NFL. They have this figured out all the way throughout the course of the offseason, which is like it never ends. It's good for their marketing, and it's good for big dates. And we have some to share with you because this one was a big one in Green Bay. Remember, next year, the NFL Draft comes to Pittsburgh. It should be a huge event. Coming up this year, though, we got rookie minicamp, as Rich talked about, May 9th through 11th. OTAs then begin on May 27th to 29th, and then again in June. Then there's a mandatory minicamp also in June, and of course training camp in late July. And at some point, we're expecting Aaron Rodgers to be part of this, Charlie.
Yeah, you would expect that, and you would think that a gentleman's agreement has been reached. But right now, we're 18 days away from the schedule release. The NFL would like to know if he's going to be on this roster. Why? Because that will impact the number of primetime games that the Steelers get this year.
And that date's an important one. It's May the 14th, so we'll have a special on that one as well, as you will find out when the Steelers play, dates, and all the important information. And in case you missed it earlier, here's a look at all their draft picks this weekend. Derrick Harmon was the first one, defensive tackle. A lot of Big Ten guys, as you can see on this list. Kaleb Johnson out of Iowa, he was their workhorse. And then Jack Sawyer, Ohio State, a guy who made a big impact on their national championship run. Y.A. Black, defensive tackle, also from Iowa. And then Will Howard, the quarterback. Everyone was waiting for a quarterback. Well, he's the guy who won a national championship and was MVP offensively with that team against Notre Dame. Carson Bruner, Mark Sun, and then Dante Cannon. How about Mark Bruner, how like 3 decades ago he was a pick of the Steelers. Today you get to hear his son.
As being a father today, I know he is super excited about that. Congratulations, Mark. Congratulations to everybody out there, man. This is an awesome day as players are living out their dreams. Now the next step is go out there and make this team.
All right, that's going to do it for us. For Rich Walsh and Charlie Batch, I'm Bob Pompeani. Thanks so much for joining us. And the Steelers, here you go now. We're ready for OTAs, we're ready for minicamp, and then training camp in July. Thank you for joining us here on KDKA TV, and we'll see you again later in the offseason.